Did you know that the Yu-Gi-Oh series wasn't just about card games, but something much darker? Duelist Kingdom in particular hides a psychological battlefield that most people overlook. So, let me ask you this. What's tougher than losing a duel? How about losing your soul to Pegasus's Millennium Eye, or facing threats that push you to the edge? What did Duelist Kingdom really mean for Yugi and his friends? Well, we'll break down how trauma, manipulation, and inner doubt shaped every move in this life-altering tournament. Get ready to see Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist Kingdom like you've never seen it before. When people think of Yu-Gi-Oh!, they usually picture high-stakes duels and iconic monsters, but the series actually began as a horror manga by Kazuki Takahashi in 1996. Those early chapters weren't about collecting cards or building the perfect deck. They were about shadow games, contests that pushed characters to their psychological limits. The original Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga set itself apart with a much darker tone, where losing a game wasn't just embarrassing, it could cost you your sanity and even your sense of reality. The shadow games were more than just competitions. Takahashi structured these early stories around Yugi facing off against bullies, cheaters, and criminals, but the real twist came with the punishments. If someone lost, they faced a penalty game, which often targeted their mind instead of just physical harm. Take the example from Chapter 2, where a TV director's eyes are turned into mosaics, making his vision pixelated like you see on TV censorship. This forced him into a state of panic and fear. Another time, a con artist was made to hallucinate flames engulfing his hands and body, a punishment that reflected his own deceit. These weren't just punishments, they were psychological traps designed to expose a person's deepest flaws or fears. This horror-driven approach made Yu-Gi-Oh! Unique, but it didn't appeal to everyone. Takahashi has talked about how the intense psychological themes and dark imagery limited the series' audience, especially among younger readers. That's why, as the manga evolved, the focus shifted to Duel Monsters, a card game that quickly became the centerpiece of the franchise. While this move opened up Yu-Gi-Oh! To a much wider audience, those original horror elements never fully disappeared. They continued to influence the way characters interacted and how tension was built throughout the story. Even as the series transformed into the card game phenomenon that we know today, the psychological roots stuck around. Duelist Kingdom, for example, didn't just borrow the card game aspect. It carried over that feeling of dread, manipulation, and high personal stakes. The tournament became a new kind of battleground, but the real conflict was still happening in the minds of the characters. This is where the psychological themes that defined the early manga start to show up in new ways, shaping every duel and every decision. Now, what really sets Duelist Kingdom apart is the way it turns each duel into a mental struggle, where fear and manipulation become weapons just as powerful as any card. The island itself is designed to keep duelists on edge, isolated from the outside world, under constant surveillance, and never quite sure who to trust. This disorienting environment raises the stakes, making every decision feel like it could be the last. At the heart of these psychological themes is the clash between Yugi's belief in his friends and Pegasus's relentless mind games. Yugi draws strength from his bonds, using his trust in others to keep his confidence steady. Pegasus, on the other hand, uses his Millennium Eye not just to read minds, but to unsettle his opponents, predicting their moves and exploiting their fears. He taunts his challengers, sets traps that prey on their insecurities, and creates an atmosphere where every mistake feels catastrophic. This isn't just a contest of skill, it's a battle for control over your own mind. In fact, Pegasus's role is a perfect example of a psychological villain. He always seems one step ahead, anticipating every action and using that knowledge to break down his opponents. When Yugi faces him, the duel becomes more than a game. It's a test of whether Yugi can hold on to his self-belief in the face of overwhelming pressure. The threat isn't just about losing cards or matches, it's about losing your sense of self, your courage, or even the people you care about the most. The tension never lets up. Every betrayal, every trick, and every moment of doubt adds another layer to the pressure. With so much on the line, even the smallest choice can have huge consequences. That's why in Duelist Kingdom, the first high-pressure duel isn't just about who wins or loses. It's about how much someone can endure when everything they care about is at stake. High-stakes duels are the core of Duelist Kingdom. Here, losing isn't just about dropping a match. It could mean getting kicked off the island for good. Duelists had to collect star chips to advance, and if you lost all your chips, you were immediately eliminated. On top of that, the rules were strict. Trying to exchange star chips outside of an official duel led to instant disqualification. This made every duel feel like a gamble with your entire future on the line, and the pressure only grew with each round. For Yugi, the tournament was never just about winning games. Pegasus had trapped Yugi's grandfather's soul, and the only way to save him was to win the whole tournament. Every duel Yugi entered felt like a desperate attempt to bring his grandfather back. The emotional weight of this mission was clear in moments like his first duel against Weevil, a duel where the stakes weren't just star chips, but Yugi's entire deck as collateral for entry. Fun fact, in the manga, Yugi staked his life instead of his deck. In fact, he staked his life a couple of times throughout the tournament. Anyway, in that moment, Yugi wasn't just risking cards, he was risking his grandfather's fate and his own sanity. Or life, if we're going off the manga. The stress of these stakes pushed Yugi to the edge, making every play a test of his focus and emotional strength. Joey's situation was just as intense. He joined the tournament for his sister Serenity, hoping to win the prize money for her eye surgery. Joey was up against duelists who were much more experienced, but his determination to help his sister gave him a different kind of strength. Each duel became a fight for her future, and losing meant letting her down. The emotional drive behind Joey's duels made every match feel urgent, with fear and hope mixed in with every move he made. The overall tournament structure made sure that no one could ever relax. Every decision, every card, and every risk carried real consequences. And with the threat of elimination always looming, the tension never dropped. But the true intensity of Duelist Kingdom didn't just come from the rules or the stakes. It came from the environment itself, which seemed designed to keep duelists off balance at every turn. Right from the start, the Duelist Kingdom Islands set a tone of unease. Pegasus used the environment as part of his strategy, making sure duelists felt isolated and uncomfortable. Instead of hotel rooms or safe spaces, competitors found themselves stuck in unheated tents, with food deliberately withheld during the preliminary rounds to push them into dueling faster. Every detail worked to break down the duelist's sense of security and make them more vulnerable. The sense of surveillance on the island was constant. Pegasus's presence could be felt everywhere, not just through the rules, but through the feeling that he was always watching. Duelists knew that every move was observed, every slip-up noted. This wasn't just unsettling, it ramped up the paranoia. They weren't just facing each other, they were always aware that Pegasus could interfere or twist the outcome. The island became a place where trust eroded quickly and everyone started to question their own decisions. Now, many areas on the island were like a labyrinth, which is a perfect example of the island's disorienting design. Duelists had to wander through confusing paths, unsure of where their opponent or even their exits might be. This wasn't just a physical challenge, it forced players to face the anxiety of the unknown. When they were already dueling for high stakes, this type of controlled chaos added another layer of mental strain. Pegasus intentionally designed these scenarios to make duelists more vulnerable, pushing them to make mistakes under pressure. By stripping away basic comforts and adding layers of surveillance and manipulation, Pegasus turned the island into a psychological trap. Every choice the duelists made was shaped by their surroundings, and by the knowledge that Pegasus controlled every aspect of the game. This set the stage for the real power struggle, not just between duelists, but between every challenger and the man pulling the strings behind the scenes. Like we mentioned, Maximilian Pegasus stands out as the ultimate psychological villain, not just because of his dueling skills, but because of how completely he manipulated the game and everyone in it. The central tool of Pegasus' strategy is of course the Millennium Eye. With it, he can read minds and anticipate every move his challengers make. Like, imagine stepping into a duel and realizing your opponent already knows your hand, your traps, and your strategy. That kind of power strips away any sense of control, making duelists second guess every decision. Pegasus doesn't just duel, he dismantles his opponent's confidence, turning every match into a test of mental endurance. But Pegasus' power isn't just about mind reading. He is a master at exploiting his opponent's fears and insecurities, twisting the duel to hit where it hurts most. When he faces Kyber, he doesn't just challenge Kyber's skill, he uses Mokuba's safety as leverage, making each turn personal and emotionally charged. Kyber, who usually keeps his cool, starts to crack under the pressure. Pegasus' manipulation pushes Kyber into a corner, showing how emotional vulnerabilities can be just as dangerous as any card on the field. Now, Pegasus doesn't limit his tactics to the strongest duelists either. He targets weaker or morally corrupt characters into becoming his pawns. Take Bandit Keith, he wasn't even part of the tournament legally, but because he was fueled by greed, he was an easy target for Pegasus to control completely. Using both his mind reading and masterful manipulation, Pegasus reduced a person to nothing more than a puppet, forcing them to carry out calculated moves and sabotage others without hesitation. Even the cards Pegasus chose reinforce his approach. His two monsters appear goofy, but they're almost invincible, creating a surreal and mocking battlefield. Opponents feel trapped in a nightmare where nothing follows the rules they know. Every part of Pegasus' strategy is about keeping his opponents off balance and making them doubt themselves. His dominance isn't just about cards or rules, it's about pushing people to their limits and watching how they respond. But not everyone breaks under that kind of pressure. Some duelists find a way to adapt and push back, even when the odds and the mind games are stacked against them. When Duelist Kingdom begins, Yugi is far from the confident duelist many people picture when they think of him. At this point, he's still figuring out who he is. Shy and unsure of himself, Yugi constantly leans on the help of others, whether it's the guidance of his friends or the unwavering support of the spirit within the Millennium Puzzle. This timid nature might make him seem like an underdog, but the pressure of Duelist Kingdom forces him to evolve, transforming him from a quiet teenager into a leader capable of taking on one of the most manipulative villains in the series, Pegasus. The duels Yugi faces throughout the arc are nothing short of high-pressure mental tests. He's not just playing for himself, of course, he's carrying the enormous weight of saving his grandfather, whose soul has been trapped. This alone would be enough to break most people, but Pegasus' ability to read minds adds another layer of psychological torment. Every attempt Yugi makes to strategize feels futile because Pegasus is always 2 steps ahead. This forces Yugi to step out of his comfort zone, not just relying on skills or tricks, but on his own intuition and trust. In these moments, he learns to silence his doubts and put absolute faith in the heart of the cards, and in his belief that he can push through the mental obstacles. Now, one of Yugi's greatest mental tests in the tournament comes after his defeat to Kyber, where Kyber threatens to unalive himself off the tower if Yugi follows through with his winning attack. Here, Yugi is in an inner conflict with the spirit of the puzzle. Yugi can't attack Kyber to win, but the spirit of the puzzle believes that there is no other option. So, the attack is called. However, Yami is overpowered by Yugi, who cancels the attack at the last moment because he is unable to watch Kyber fall to his death. Yugi falls to his knees, shocked by what he had almost done. He cries after everything that had happened and becomes scared of his alter ego. Now fully aware of the other Yugi's existence, Yugi admits to his friends that he is terrified of him and, as a result, is afraid to ever duel again. This is Yugi's darkest moment in the arc. He is in a spiral of fear, doubt, and terror of what he could be capable of doing. However, it's one of his greatest strengths that pulls him out of this darkness. Yugi leans heavily on the bonds he shares with his friends, whether it's Joey cheering him on or Teo reminding him of his inner strength. Their unwavering support becomes a source of energy even when his own confidence wavers. This portrayal of friendship as not just emotional support, but a tool for psychological growth is key. It allows Yugi to tap into a new level of mental resilience and combine it with his strategic mind. By the time Yugi confronts Pegasus in the final duel, he's no longer the same person who timidly entered the tournament. What once scared him now fuels him. His ability to adapt and believe in himself at his weakest moments become the very reason that he triumphs. Then there's Joey's experience in Duelist Kingdom. Well, that's the textbook case of what it means to be an underdog in high-pressure environments. When Joey first entered the tournament, he had a lot to prove. Joey's early deck lacked spells and traps, leaving him at a strategic disadvantage compared to almost every other duelist. His inexperience showed in his first matches, and he often relied on luck and instinct instead of any real strategy. But what made things even harder for Joey was his constant battle with self-doubt. He wasn't just learning the rules, he was trying to convince himself that he deserved to be there at all. That insecurity was put to the test in his duel against Kyber. Kyber's overwhelming confidence and refined tactics made the gap between them very clear. Kyber's Blue Eyes White Dragon wasn't the only thing Joey had to worry about. It was Kyber's ability to control the duel and stay calm under pressure. Joey's defeat was tough, but it forced him to see where he needed to improve. The added pressure of winning the prize money for his sister Serenity's surgery only raised the stakes, but instead of backing down, Joey used that motivation to push himself harder. He started to focus more, learn from his mistakes, and slowly build his confidence. One of Joey's early turning points was actually his first duel against Mai. Mai's experience and tactical play forced Joey to think differently. Instead of letting his nerves get the best of him, Joey paid close attention to her moves and figured out how to counter her strategy. Winning that duel wasn't just about outplaying Mai, it was about Joey realizing he could overcome his own fear and doubt. That victory marked a real shift in his mindset, showing he could stand up to tough opponents through determination and quick thinking. And Joey's progress didn't stop there. His biggest challenge came against Bandit Keith, where the pressure was even higher. By then, Joey had learned to let go of his insecurities and trust in his instincts. That mental growth let him stay focused, adapt on the fly, and ultimately prove that he belonged among the top duelists. But while Joey's battles were all about overcoming self-doubt, there were others in the tournament whose struggles were hidden behind a much different kind of mask. Enter Mai Valentine. When she arrives in Duelist Kingdom, she projected confidence and independence, always appearing in control of her duels and her image. But under that polished surface is a carefully built facade. Mai's self-assurance is a form of emotional armor, a way to keep her real feelings hidden and protect herself from vulnerability. This approach helps her maintain distance from others, but it also leaves her isolated, relying on her persona rather than genuine connection. Now, a big part of my strategy early on was of course her aroma tactics. This was a gimmick where she claimed to have psychic abilities, but actually she was just using perfume to help her identify her cards. This trick, alongside her focus on Harpy Lady cards and their support effects, let her create the illusion that she's playing on another level. She uses these tactics to gain the upper hand, especially in duels like her early match with Rex Raptor. There, she manipulates both the flow of the duel and the perception of her opponents, leveraging her appearance and reputation to keep others guessing. It's a clever approach, but it also shows how much she relies on external tricks to mask her insecurities. Things of course change when Mai faces Joey. As Joey adapts to her strategies and starts to push back, Mai's frustration grows. When she eventually loses, the defeat is real and raw. Her usual composure slips and her vulnerabilities come through. This loss forces Mai to question the effectiveness of her emotional armor and the value of the persona that she's worked so hard to maintain. It's a turning point, showing that her tactics can only protect her for so long. Mai's growth is evidently clear after this duel. Fast forward to when Yugi loses to Kyber and is at risk of being eliminated, Mai steps in and offers her star chips to help him continue in the tournament. This act isn't about appearances or manipulation, it's about genuine support and connection. Mai's journey in Duelist Kingdom is about learning that real strength comes from letting others in, not just keeping up a strong front. And while some duelists struggle with insecurity or emotional armor, others face challenges rooted in pride and the pressure to always be in control. Kyber's mental struggle in Duelist Kingdom stands out as one of the most intense psychological battles in the series. Kyber arrives on the island with his trademark confidence and a drive to prove himself to be the best. But his motivation goes deeper than just pride. His main goal is to save his brother Mokuba, and that personal stake pushes him into situations that test both his resolve and his sense of control. Kyber's reputation for ruthless tactics and his reliance on his Blue Eyes White Dragon reflect how much he values power and dominance, but the tournament quickly reveals just how fragile that confidence can be. Before Kyber could even challenge Pegasus, he was forced to face Yugi in a duel that pushed him to the edge, literally. Kyber, desperate to reach his brother, threatens to jump from the castle if Yugi attacks, forcing Yugi to surrender the duel. This moment exposes how far Kyber is willing to go when the stakes are personal, even if it means sacrificing his own sense of honor. The victory is hollow, and Kyber's frustration shows. He's won, but not on his own terms. When Kyber faces Pegasus, the duel becomes a full-on assault on Kyber's mind. He turns Kyber's need for control into a weakness, predicting every strategy and stripping away any sense of security. Kyber, who's always relied on brute force and calculated plays, finds himself completely outmaneuvered. The more Pegasus anticipates his moves, the more frustrated and desperate Kyber becomes. The pressure isn't just about the duel itself. Pegasus manipulates Mokuba's fate at every turn, making Kyber question every decision and amplifying his anxiety. Kyber's defeat at the hands of Pegasus is more than just a loss in the tournament. It's a breaking point that forces him to face the limits of his pride and his approach to dueling. Pegasus's psychological tactics leave Kyber shaken, showing that strength alone isn't enough when your opponent can get inside your head. This loss marks a turning point for Kyber, setting him on a path towards growth and self-reflection. Not that he'll let you see that, of course. Now, while Kyber's battles are some of the most memorable, Duelist Kingdom is packed with other duelists who bring their own unique brand of psychological warfare to the tournament, making every match a test of mental endurance. Characters like Bandit Keith, the Paradox Brothers, PaniK, Yami Bakura, and the Ventriloquist of the Dead, well, they may not have been the headliners, but they added extra layers of tension and mind games that elevated the arc's themes of fear, deception, and manipulation. So let's start with Bandit Keith. In the original manga, Keith's backstory shows a man completely consumed by his failures. After being humiliated by Pegasus, his ego spiraled into self-destruction, plunging him into gambling and substance abuse, all in a desperate attempt to reclaim some sense of power. In Duelist Kingdom, his methods show just how far he's willing to go, stealing cards, cheating in duels, even threatening others. Keith uses deception tactically, showing how unchecked pride and desperation can twist someone into a shell of who they once were. Pegasus, of course, exploits this, manipulating Keith into becoming a pawn for his own gains, which only further heightens Keith's mental downfall. Now, the Paradox Brothers, well, they bring a different kind of psychological challenge. Their duel with Yugi and Joey takes place inside a labyrinth created by their Labyrinth wall card. This isn't just a change of scenery, it's a complete shift in how the game is played. The maze is confusing and unpredictable, making every move a mental challenge. The brothers use their environment to disorient their opponents, forcing Yugi and Joey to work together while dealing with constant uncertainty. Instead of relying on raw power, the Paradox Brothers use confusion and psychological pressure to keep their opponents second-guessing every decision. PaniK, however, is a completely different beast. His flame-ejecting arena and night field aren't just tactics, they're intimidation tools meant to paralyze his opponents with fear. And then there's the puppeteer of doom from the manga, Ghost Kyber in the anime, whose eerie Kyber puppet turns his duel with Yugi into a psychological nightmare. It's a great one. These duels show how the stakes in Duelist Kingdom go far beyond the cards on the table. Every match tests not just skill, but the ability to handle fear, deception, and the pressure of the unknown. It's this focus on mental endurance that makes Duelist Kingdom such a standout arc. It stands out because it goes beyond card games and explores how fear, manipulation, and pressure shape every character. The arc shows how Pegasus' tactics and the tournament's harsh rules push duelists to confront their own doubts and adapt or break under the pressure. Now, if you haven't looked at Duelist Kingdom this way before, now is the perfect time to rewatch it with a new perspective. And if you want to find out just how much darker this arc was in the manga and the original anime, well, check out this video here where I dive into the shocking truth behind Yu-Gi-Oh's Duelist Kingdom arc. It's a great one. I'll see you over there. Till then, take care. Peace, peace.